Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hello and welcome to Teach Me Tech. I'm your host, Laurel Gray, and today I am joined by the fabulous and incredibly geeky Ben Carter.
Hello.
From YoNet, which I thought was UNet, but it's YoNet.
I'll take it. Yeah.
And Ben has got an extensive amount of experience with web development, search engine optimization, and I think YoNet specializes as well in sort of local search.
Correct. That's right, Laurel.
Yeah, so I'm here to pick your brain today.
Yeah, look
all
forward to it.
About Joomla.
Yay, my favorite.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting, so thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you, Laurel.
All right, before we get started, what we'll do is we'll run through what we're going to talk about with Joomla, and then Ben's just going to take it away and give us all that we need to know on how to get started. So here's what we're going to cover. Why you would choose Joomla, choosing a theme developer, installing Joomla, essential components and plugins that you need to have, security, the redirect component, adding users, creating menus, and finally, tips for making the most out of Joomla. So let's get started. I'm really excited about this because, being sort of in the small, medium business space, I really have only worked with WordPress. And I was telling you before, the last time I actually looked at Joomla was about 5 years ago. And essentially WordPress, Joomla, and also you were saying Drupal. Drupal?
I'm not sure. Drupal. I've always said Drupal, but, I'm not the world's last leading authority on grammar either, so.
No idea how you say it.
Yeah, Drupal's good. Yeah.
We were talking about the fact that they're all open source CMS or content management systems.
Yes.
Are you able to just kick off this conversation and tell us what does that whole thing mean?
Yeah, sure. From a standpoint of a small business owner, you've really got to make the decision, am I going to go with a proprietary software? So a business owner is going to either partner with a local web agency that has their own proprietary software or a paid software. Behind that is open source. So open source takes up pretty much the entire web. It's around about 85% of the web at the moment. And a large percent of that 85% is WordPress, and that's because of ease of access. The next in line from that is Joomla, and then back from that is Drupal. And Drupal and Joomla don't get the same airplay because I don't think they market themselves as well. And they're also just that little bit more complex, but that comes with benefits.
All right. Well, maybe can you tell us a little bit, you mentioned that there is that segment of the market that's closed source web development.
Yes.
Why would we not want to choose a closed source platform?
Sure. Look, there'd be positives. I guess relationships come and go in business. And you want that flexibility that if you invested all that time, you might get to the end and realize that if you wish to change companies, all you've got is the words on the paper. That's it. You just got the words on the screen, and then you've got to find another developer and build from there. For example, I always say to my customers, if I get hit by a truck, it's yours. There's plenty of Joomla developers in the world, as there is WordPress developers, and it's that ability to be able to move and be fluid in your business and have options. There is no cost of licensing with the software either. So obviously you need to engage a professional like myself.
So that's really interesting that you mentioned about the difference between closed source and open source web development. Can you talk a little bit more about why we would not want to use a closed source web developer? Yeah,
sure. People in business, time evolves and relationships come and go. If you choose a closed source software development, pretty much your relationship with that developer it's set. If you go open source, you can move between developers. You know that there is also the continued development of open source. So generally, I find closed source platforms to be quite lazy. So they're too busy satisfying customers and doing the support to keep actively developing that website software and keep that humming. Where people like WordPress and Joomla and Drupal, massive, hundreds of people in the room, all adding their input, making it better all the time. That's why I like it. Yeah.
Yep. And as well, there are so many different developers out there that can help you if you're using an open source platform, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas if you go with a closed source platform, what happens is you're kind of stuck often. And how do you get your content out?
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. Yeah.
Whereas if you're using WordPress or Joomla or Drupal, you can actually export your content. Is that right?
You can export it or you can give it to the next developer. So they can generally pick that up and run with the project from there. So I think that's one of the biggest advantages, just having that freedom and the flexibility and knowing that the contents and all the work that you've put in and paid for is yours.
So is that actually what happens with Joomla? Like, can you walk us through some of the advantages of
Yeah,
Joomla?
well, Joomla for me was, like you've said, you've been with WordPress for 5 years. One of the originating founders of Joomla actually came from where I'm from, which is Toowoomba. So there's this bit
Toowoomba.
of... Yeah.
If you're watching and you're not from Australia, Toowoomba is up in Queensland.
It's a place. Yeah.
It's a place.
Lots
yeah.
of O's, yeah.
A lot of O's.
So there's actually a really big following of Joomla where I'm from, which is weird for a country town of 100,000 people, because one of the founders from Joomla, he now sits, in an office making $500 an hour or something from his house in Toowoomba. So,
Wow.
so Joomla is now huge. It's the second largest CMS in the world, and I really love the fact that it's got a really vibrant community. Some of the security benefits are huge with Joomla. So a lot of people with other open source software programs are always chasing the tails with security, and that's just not the case with Joomla. It's a lot more of a stable, robust platform. And as a developer, if I've got a lot of buggy sites out there, that's sleepless nights. So it's, for me, a lot of people, they charge more for Joomla, and it's a bit of a barrier to entry. But what you end up is with something that's a lot more robust and stable, and that's why I choose to put the extra hours in to develop with it. Yep.
It's interesting, right? Because WordPress has got so many users. We all know about WordPress, but Joomla is not far behind. And it's interesting because the security can actually be better if you're not the first tier. Because imagine all the people that are trying to kind of go in and hack WordPress.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's why I wanted to get him on to talk about Joomla, because it sort of doesn't get as much notoriety.
Yeah.
But maybe you can talk about some of the other benefits as well.
Sure. Well, definitely in the early days, really, WordPress was all free developers. There was no commercialization of the software. So I've been doing this for a decade now. Joomla because it was largely business focused, there was a lot more money to be made by the components and extensions. So a lot more energy was being put into it. With WordPress, that came later. I think WordPress is doing a better job of landing pages, subscription type websites. I think Joomla is doing a better job of, you'll see that every regional council across Australia is using Joomla. eBay uses Joomla. IKEA uses Joomla. If things get big, Joomla is really where you've got to go. I find WordPress gets a little limiting. I love WordPress, but it's just for the sake of this demo, this conversation, it's definitely for me much more of a robust platform for a small to medium-sized business, particularly with big content.
Okay. So it sounds like to me, I'm just sort of summarizing, if you're looking at really scaling your business, either from a product standpoint or by generating out a lot of content, Joomla could be a really big contender.
You should consider it, absolutely. Yeah, really look between the two and make a decision, an informed decision. And of course, everything's relationships. So if you're going to be working with someone and they're your advisor, like what do they love? And go between two and see why they choose one or the other. Because at the end of the day, most people that are at a scale of business that they're going to choose Joomla for business, they're not going to be in the trenches too much with it. So it's going to be, a lot of it to do with the relationship and who you're dealing with. Yeah.
Okay. Do you mind if I ask you one more question that I'm curious about?
Sure, please.
So a lot of people that I work with WordPress, they want to do it themselves. So, we load up the theme, and it's pretty easy for people to get started and actually use it on their own if they're a business owner, to add pages and also customize the look and feel for their business. Is it the same with Joomla, or is it sort of like you need to work with a professional to really get it looking and feeling how you want?
It's a big piece of string question because how technical is that person? Are they able to do some technical things themselves? I think if they are, and if they're motivated to put the time into it, they'll get there. I think one party piece that Joomla has that comes out of the box is it's got front-end editing. So you can set up the website so that the user can log in and the entire website is editable.
Oh, wow.
So they don't even need to access the administration area. They can make the changes to the content, add new content, and close it out. And that's probably about as minimal as technical as you can get with any website that's on the market.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say you're starting up a business and you do decide to go with Joomla. It sounds like you can get a developer to set it up, get it going for you, and then you don't have to be that technical to actually use the software to make changes. Okay, that's really good to know. I actually wasn't aware of that, so I'm looking forward to the demo.
Yeah, it's certainly simplified over the years. I think in the beginning it certainly had a huge, it was a big wall you had to cross to get into it, but that's certainly dropped over the time. Yeah.
All right. Ooh, I'm excited. Is there anything else that you want to add? Any other benefits that we haven't talked about?
Look, I think the fact that there's a huge community behind it. The people are very active in the forums around Joomla. So if you do want to get in there and play with the trenches, get in the trenches with it, there's hundreds of people there waiting to answer your questions. So that's reassuring, because if someone gets you started or if you want to get going, you're going to need help. So yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so what we've learned so far, it sounds like Joomla is an open source platform. There's loads of help. It might be a little bit technical to get started.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.